Welcome on in, everybody. So the PTR was delayed a day. Nobody saw that coming. But hopefully we get to actually play it tomorrow and there's no more delays. We did, however, get the patch notes, so we got to see all the changes that are going to be coming with the PTR. Now, if you saw my video from a couple days ago, most of the changes that are coming were covered in that video, including all of the new artifact items that are coming. However, there are a couple things that they didn't mention until the patch notes today, so I'm just going to go over that with you guys. Starting off with some Outpost Rush changes. They added a 50% weakness for siege damage to fort gate doors. So this means things like powder kegs are going to deal 50% additional damage to those structures. So we might see a lot more powder kegs in OPR. And then on top of it, they reduced the strike and slash absorption that doors had from 10 and 20% to 0. They're still going to have thrust and elemental damage protection, but at least for melee weapons, which are predominantly strike and slash damage, they are going to be doing more damage to those doors. And they also increased the build and repair time for doors, 25% for tier 2 and 50% for tier 3. So hopefully this prevents that guy sitting behind the door repairing and 4 people unable to get in while he does it. We'll see how this goes. So there have been some pretty big changes to the weight loads for equipment. Medium is now the baseline with all modifiers set to 0. And here are the modifiers. Heavy gets a 20% decrease to incoming CC effect durations, a 15% increase to block stability, and they, however, will deal 15% less damage and have 30% less outgoing healing with something like a life staff. Light armor is still going to be the damage-focused option. 15% increase to your damage, 30% increase to your healing. But the trade-off for light armor are pretty rough. 15% decrease to block stability, which isn't too terrible, but a 10% increase to incoming CC status effect duration. Oof, that is super rough for light armor and definitely enforces the don't get hit versus get hit at all and try to survive it playstyle. So yeah, we'll see how this plays out because this is directly counter-affecting things like freedom. And I think it's worth mentioning that there were no changes to the dodge costs for any of the armor weights as well. So heavy is still going to have that more expensive dodge cost. And an interesting change that I saw, I don't really know what this means, but I want to see on the PTR, players now have limited rotation while dodging forwards or backwards. Don't know what that means. And I think it goes without mentioning that there are a lot of things that got fixed, but I'm not going to go over all of those in the patch notes here. There is a link to the notes down below if you guys want to read the full notes yourself, of course. We can now have 10 artifact quests instead of 5. That's really nice. And a nice fix for the 350 strength attribute bonus. It wasn't applying the bonus damage to ranged ability damage. So yeah, my Inferno Fire Staff says thank you. Still waiting on that fix to the burn scaling though. Now this one's scary. Fixed an issue where bow heavy attacks were sometimes being treated as light attacks. Yeah, everyone was like, don't worry about the spear. Bow doesn't have a heavy attack. Well, now we can worry about the spear, I guess. Mana regen will not occur while flamethrower is active. I'm all for this. For Great Axe Whirlwind, will now do 4 spins without stopping by default, and then 5, 6, and 7 spins as you hit targets. Hatchet got quite a few changes. They increased the damage for the infected throw to 150% weapon damage. The debuff duration and the increased damage per debuff from the Pestilent Hindrance ultimate ability has been increased to 25% duration, 4% additional damage. I'm assuming that the cap on this damage has also gone up a little bit as well. The range damage from the Hurling Force passive ability is now 25% bonus damage up to a range of 20 meters from the target. So that's nice for throwing Hatchet. Definitely one of the most underutilized ranged weapons in this game. For Ice Gauntlet, Wind Chill got a little bit of a damage increase for the final 2 meters of the ability. They increased the damage of the Ice Spike Trail to 61% from 56%. Not a huge damage increase to Ice Spike, but at least it's a little bit. This one's huge. 4 seconds slow for Frozen Touch passive ability versus the 2 second slow from before. Oh my god, that completely changes Ice Gauntlet. That is a 100% increase to the slow duration, and 4 seconds of a slow is super brutal in PvP. And then Void Gauntlet just got a flat damage increase of 5.25%. Except for its abilities, apparently, like Oblivion and Scream, they have been lowered back to the pre-patch value, I guess. Warhammer got an increase on the stagger and stagger duration by 5 frames for Path of Destiny, so that is definitely a notable increase in being locked in that stagger. Haste duration on clear out has been increased to 4 seconds, And guarded sprint will now work while traversing, walking, running, and sprinting. Mostly just fixes to mounts, but a nice little change. You get to keep your speed period for a little bit after you leave the road. It doesn't just fall off right away anymore. There's been a big rework to the cooking portion of the game. I'm not going to go too in depth to it, but for the most part, things are just being standardized and you have a lot less recipes that you have to look through. The effectiveness of the recipes has changed a little bit here too. The current, I guess, banana pudding meta that we have, being the 48 in a single stat as your best food, is now going to be 44. And the best food is going to be the one that, of course, requires that goldfish or some other crap like that. And that's how you'll get that last 4 additional max stat. But yeah, the cooking rework's a lot to go over. And if you guys want to read about it, there's a link to the notes down below for you. There's been a rework to the PvP reward tracks as well. The ranks have been changed a little bit so that you don't have as much of a, I guess, huge lull between the final ranks. And there is a change to how gear is rolled for the PvP reward tracks. The minimum gear score for recruit is now going to be 650. So I'm assuming once you get up further along your reward tracks, the minimum gear score is going to get higher and higher, closer to that 700 value, possibly even 700 once you hit 200 rank. I'm not sure. We'll have to get on the PTR and see if we even have a 200 rank character to test this with. They've made it so consumable and PvP craft mods can now be purchased directly from the reward track as well, instead of coming in these packs. Artifact appearance frequency has been increased. That's a big deal. Craft mod types have been reduced and the selection has become more optimized, and you'll see less gypsum orb and mount attachments in the reward tracks as well. They've adjusted the Azoth cost rewards of each of the items too, and kind of fun, they added a whole bunch of unique PvP dyes that you can get from those reward tracks, depending on which faction you're in. On top of it, they've added new level 65 tier 5 named weapons, armor, and trinkets, and they've added new predator trinkets available at the star metal tier and above. This is nice. Hopefully we get some cool gear from the PvP reward tracks. Once I can check this stuff out on New World Database, I'm going to look at all the different perks that I can find and see how good some of this gear will actually be. They have adjusted Magnify. I know I covered this in the other video, but it's really awesome. You can basically just pick the stat that you want Magnify to be, or you can just leave it scaling from your highest stat. Super off topic, but they removed the transmogs for the Glass Warhammer, the Glass Void Gauntlet, and the Glass Blunderbuss. This makes me sad. I was hoping that they would actually add these as drops because I do love the glass skins myself. But yeah. Of course, the winged leather shoes and quick draw gloves from the Season 4 rewards are going to be put onto drops from the Helianthus and Ippomoia world bosses in the Elysium Wilds. And that's all the big changes that are coming with this patch. Of course, if you didn't see the previous video I did, that goes over all of the new artifacts that are coming, and you can see the actual tooltips for a few of them as well. All the links for my socials and stuff are going across the screen for you guys. Check out our sponsor, ExpressVPN. And of course, a big thank you to all of my patrons on Patreon for supporting the show. Let me know what you guys think about these patch notes and what your thoughts are about this coming season. Of course, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a good one, and I'll see you next time.